Fine, so let's start the discussion for the day. So we have waited for 2-3 minutes for everyone to log in and attend the class. So let's start the discussion for the day. So yesterday our discussion was focused on the overall objectives of the independent auditor and how to conduct the audit in accordance with standards. So we discussed about the overall objectives, we discussed about reasonable assurance, we discussed inherent limitations of audit, correct? Inherent limitations of audit. So all these things that we have discussed yesterday, and I think we have also discussed points relating to the ethical requirements of an auditor. If I'm not wrong, we also discussed regarding the ethical requirements of an auditor, that is integrity, objectivity, confidentiality, professional competence and due care, and professional behavior. Correct? I think we have done regarding those points also, if I'm not wrong. Can you please confirm? Yes, have we done the ethical requirements yesterday? Did we learn about the ethical requirements of a professional accountant, the code of ethics, which gives you 5 ethical requirements? Yes, have we done it? Please confirm to me. Yes, fine. So let's move forward and start discussing on the topic of audit evidence. Okay, let's move forward and discuss the topic of audit evidence. Now, why is topic of audit evidence extremely important? One, for new syllabus students, it is covered in chapter number 3. For old syllabus students, understand this is your SA 500. Even for new syllabus, it is SA 500, but this is covered in chapter number 3. Now, why the discussion of audit evidence is extremely important? Because for an auditor to express his opinion, for an auditor to say whether the financial statements are showing a true and fair view, for an auditor to come to a conclusion on whether the financial statements are free from material misstatements due to fraud or error, to reach that reasonable assurance, for everything that the auditor comes to a conclusion or an opinion, he needs audit evidence. He needs audit evidence. Correct? So, what exactly do you think is audit evidence? Audit evidence could be those informations that is used by the auditor to reach a conclusion, on which his opinion is going to be based. So whatever opinion that he is going to express that opinion, he will have to reach to a conclusion. Now, to reach to a conclusion on a particular transaction or a particular event, he needs information about that transaction, about that account balance, that is assets, liabilities, whatever it is. So the information that is used by the auditor to reach a particular conclusion, and based on that conclusion, you are expressing your opinion, that will be called as what? Audit evidence. That will be called as audit evidence. I repeat, let's see what is audit evidence. It says audit evidence may be defined. You need to learn the definition. Please understand. Audit evidence may be defined as the information used by the auditor. I repeat, audit evidence may be defined as the information used by the auditor in arriving at the conclusions on which the auditor's opinion is based. I repeat, audit evidence may be defined as the information used by the auditor. Information used by the auditor in arriving at the conclusions, on which auditor's opinion is based, So, whatever opinion that the auditor will express, he has to reach a conclusion. To reach that conclusion, he needs certain information. That information is called as audit evidence. Now comes the most important part. Audit evidence includes both information contained in the accounting records underlying the financial statements and other information. Now it says audit evidence includes both informations contained in the accounting records underlying the financial statements and other information. So it says audit evidence is what? It is the information. It is the information used by the auditor to arrive at the conclusions on which auditor's opinion is based. And they say the information that they are trying to explain here, it includes both information in accounting records. It includes both information in accounting records and also certain other information. This is accounting records underlying the financial statements, and other information. Now, my question is very simple to you. I understand this point. What is this point? It says information contained in the accounting records. Obviously, that means whatever information that auditor is going to use, it will be from mostly from which records? From the accounting records underlying the financial statements. Means what? The accounting records used for preparing the financial statements. The accounting records means it includes everything. Everything related to accounts, be it invoices, be it vouchers, be it journals, ledgers, everything. Accounting records underlying the financial statements. But my question to you is, they also say information contains other information. That means there could be some information used by the auditor to come to a conclusion. The information could be other information. What do you mean by other information? What do you mean by other information? Now here it is clearly said it is information contained in accounting records. So when they say other information, they might be trying to tell you it is information other than that is contained in the accounting records. So information other than accounting records. Now, what does this try to say? It says that it is not that the auditor will be examining or focusing only on the accounting records. There could be sometimes where he might have to access or he might have to examine certain other than accounting records which could be used for reaching the conclusion and expressing the opinion. Are you getting my point? That means your information is not confined only to the accounting records. Your information is not confined only to the accounting records. It also extends to certain other information. Sir, can you give us any example? Yes. Other information, one of the good examples that we can use for our discussion would be minutes book. Minutes book. I hope you have heard about minutes book. So when a meeting is being conducted, whatever happens in a meeting will be, written in a book. It's a statutory book which is required by the statute. The law requires you to maintain the book called as minutes book to understand what has happened in the meeting. Now, minutes book is a statutory book. It is a statutory book. It is not an accounting record. But minutes book contains information regarding the meetings. And when an auditor audits the financial statements, listen to me carefully, there could be a lot of situations like loan given to a subsidiary company or deciding to venture into a new business, new product, or many things, directors and decisions of, dividend. It's like a fixation of dividend. Many things would be done in the board meeting. Okay, and you might go through the minutes of board meeting to get the details of those. Sir, why do you think auditor needs details of those? Because ultimately some of these can affect the financial statements also. So it is not an accounting record, it is an other than accounting record, but it is used as an audit evidence by the auditor. It is used as an audit evidence by the auditor. Please understand. It's a so beautiful definition. Says it is not confined just to what accounting records. It also includes what other information. Clear? So here it is said information contained in accounting records means what? Accounting records include the records of initial accounting entries and the supporting records such as checks and records of electronic fund transfers, invoices, contracts, general subsidiary ledgers, journals. All these are accounting records. Cost allocation, reconciliation worksheets, spreadsheets. Then comes other information. They say other information that authenticates the accounting records, also supports the auditor's rationale behind the true and fair view of the financial statements. Other information which the auditor may use as an audit evidence includes, for example, minutes of the meetings, written confirmations from trade receivables, manuals containing details of electronic internal control. I'll tell you, internal control. Every organization will have an internal control system. Now, to understand how the internal control functions, they might have a manual. That means they might have a book which explains the control system of the organization. Now, that is something which the auditor may use to understand the internal control of the organization. That is other information. It has nothing to do with accounting records. Are you getting my point? So why are you spending so much time on this? Because if you see, I think recently one of the examination, they asked this question. They asked you to explain this particular aspect of what is contained in accounting records and what is other information. So please understand, this is a 4-mark question. This is a 4-mark question. Whole thing is a 4-mark question. You'll have to learn it properly. I'm telling you, it's a 4-mark question which could be asked in the exam. So please make sure that you are learning it. Do you understand? Please make sure that you are learning it. It's a good 4-mark question. It's a good 4-mark question. So here it explains what is audit evidence. It explains what is audit evidence, and there are 2 examples for audit evidence. There are there are 2 things that are explained regarding audit evidence. Now, it says audit evidence. Listen to me carefully. Audit evidence must be sufficient and appropriate. Audit evidence must be sufficient and appropriate. Audit evidence must be sufficient and appropriate. So there's a clear understanding that the audit evidence, that is the information that the auditor uses to form a conclusion on the basis of which his opinion is based, that information must be sufficient and appropriate. That information must be sufficient and appropriate enough to express his opinion. Now, if I ask you, what do you mean by sufficient audit evidence? Is it quantity of audit evidence or is it quality of audit evidence? You tell me. What do you mean by sufficiency of audit evidence? Is it quantity of audit evidence or quality of audit evidence? What do you mean by sufficiency? Quantity or quality? Quick, come on, come on. Sufficiency is the quantity or quality? It is the quantity of audit evidence. Perfect. This also has come for examination. Sufficiency is the quantity of audit evidence, whereas appropriateness describes the quality of audit evidence. That is quantity and quality. I repeat, quantity and quality. So sufficiency focuses on what? Quantity of audit evidence, whereas appropriateness focuses on quality of audit evidence. Quality of audit evidence. Do you understand? Quality of audit evidence. Should be very careful. Quantity, quality. This could come as correct or incorrect question. True or false? Sufficiency is the measure of quantity of audit evidence, whereas appropriateness is the measure of quality of audit evidence. Quality of audit evidence. Now, so evidence must be sufficient and appropriate. Now before going forward, let's try to understand the types of audit evidence. The types of audit evidence. The types of audit evidence. Types of audit evidence, the classification could be based on nature, could be based on source. If you classify audit evidence on the basis of nature, there could be 3 types of audit evidence. 1, oral evidence. Second, documentary evidence. Third, visual evidence. Visual evidence. So classification of audit evidence on the basis of nature would be oral evidence, documentary evidence, visual evidence. Okay. What do you mean by oral evidence? What do you mean by oral evidence? I go and speak to the people in the organization and gather information orally. Gather the information orally by listening to them. That is oral evidence. That is what evidence? Oral evidence. Now, what is documentary evidence? What is documentary evidence? Those bills, vouchers, contracts, records which are written or which may be in electronic, digital form. That is documentary evidence. Documentary evidence. Then you have something called as what? Visual evidence. Something called as what? Visual evidence. What is visual evidence? What do you mean visual evidence? Where auditor is looking or watching something. He is getting the evidence visually, physical verification, where he watches the process and gets the evidence. That is visual evidence. That is called as what? Visual evidence. So, oral evidence, documentary evidence, visual evidence. Fine. Then comes source. Source. Based on source, it is either internal evidence, then external evidence. You have internal evidence and what? External evidence. Evidence generated from within the organization, internal evidence. Evidence generated from outside the organization, external evidence. So you can see the types of audit evidence or classification of audit evidence on the basis of nature could be oral evidence, documentary evidence and visual evidence. On the basis of source is internal evidence, external evidence. You understand? Very, 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 very important. Now, let me ask you a question. Um, tell me, tell me, purchase invoice. Purchase invoice. You tell me the nature and the source of evidence. Purchase invoice. Purchase invoice. Purchase invoice. You tell me the nature and the source of evidence. Both. Purchase invoice, nature and source. Purchase invoice. You tell me the nature and source of evidence. Nature and source of evidence. Both you tell me. Nature as well as source. Nature and documentary. Nature is documentary. Correct. So documentary is the nature. Then what about source? What about source? What about the source? And external. Documentary and external. Good. Documentary and external. Why external? Because purchase invoice is generated from outside the organization and it is a written evidence. So it's a documentary evidence. Fine. So it is documentary and external. Good. So like this questions can be expected. Like this questions can be expected. So please be little careful. You can expect questions like this. You can expect questions like this. Fine. So it is very, very important to learn these evidence. For example, that imagine I go and speak to the people in the organization. So I make inquiry. Okay, I'm speaking to the people in the organization. I'm making inquiries with them. In that case, it is an oral evidence based on nature and internal evidence as I'm obtaining from within the organization. Are you getting my point? You could get this for MCQ. You could get this for MCQ. They might give you an evidence and ask you what is the nature and the source based the classification of audit evidence. So please be a little careful. Now, so evidence is necessary to support auditor's opinion and report. It is cumulative in nature and is primarily obtained from audit procedures performed during the course of audit. It is, however, it may, however, also include information obtained from other sources such as what? Previous audits. It's a good sentence. It may also include information obtained from other sources such as previous audits. That means what information that you have already obtained from previous audits. What information you have already obtained from previous audits. It could be used as an audit evidence even in the current year. Do you understand? In addition to other sources inside and outside the entity, entities' accounting records are an important source of audit evidence. Information may be prepared using management expert and all that we'll see later. Then, now it says, as explained in essay 200, now read this. Reasonable assurance is obtained when the auditor has obtained sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. So reasonable assurance can be obtained only if the auditor has obtained sufficient appropriate audit evidence. I repeat, sufficient appropriate audit evidence. The sufficiency and appropriateness of audit evidence are interrelated. Sufficiency and appropriateness of audit evidence are interrelated. Now, what do you mean by sufficiency of audit evidence? Read. Sufficiency is the measure of, I repeat, quantity of audit evidence. It is a measure of quantity of audit evidence. The quantity of audit evidence needed is affected by one, the materiality. So the auditor's judgment as to sufficiency may be affected by the factors. So what are the factors affecting the sufficiency of audit evidence? I repeat, we understand that audit evidence must be sufficient and appropriate. Sufficiency means quantity of audit evidence. So what quantity of audit evidence should the auditor collect is dependent on certain factors. The first factor that affects the quantity of an audit evidence, they say, is materiality. They say is what? Materiality. Let me ask you a question. If you feel the transaction that you are examining is material, I repeat, if you feel the transaction that you are examining is material, is what? Material. You will want more quantity of audit evidence or lesser quantity of audit evidence. I repeat, if the transaction that you are examining, imagine, is material, you will want more audit evidence or lesser quantity of audit evidence when it is material. Tell me quickly, come on. Come on, everybody. Come on, come on. You want more, correct? So that means when the materiality has now affected your quantity of audit evidence. I hope you got the example correct. Right, your materiality has affected the decision of quantity. Next, risk of material misstatement. What do you mean by risk of material misstatement? If you feel the chances for a material misstatement is high, if you feel the chances for a material misstatement is high, you would want to have more audit evidence. You would want to have more audit evidence. I repeat, if you feel the chances for a material misstatement is high, you may want to have more audit evidence. Same way, risk of material misstatement will affect the quantity. Next is size and characteristics of the population. Listen, size and characteristics of the population. Now imagine there is a population. Imagine there are some 100 transactions which is the same characteristics. Nothing much of a difference between those 100 transactions. Then maybe you will take little bit of evidence from there and you will move forward. Why? That much quantity is enough because the population is of similar characteristics. But if the population is of different characteristics, then you may go for more and more evidence. Are you getting my points? So these are the three factors which affects the sufficiency of an audit evidence. Now tell me, my students, let's learn this. Okay, let's learn this. I hope you are with me. Take your have a notebook with you. It says audit evidence must be sufficient and appropriate. Correct? Sufficiency is the measure of quantity of audit evidence. Quantity of audit evidence. Correct? Quantity. And sufficiency is affected by certain factors. 1, 2, 3. What is the first factor? First factor was What are the first factor? Materiality. Second one, risk of material misstatement. Third one is size and characteristics of population. You could get a question like this regarding sufficiency. Please take care. Okay, sufficiency, they've clearly given that it is a measure of quantity of audit evidence, and factors is 3 factors. Fine. Now, what is appropriateness? Appropriateness is the measure of quality of audit evidence. I repeat, appropriateness is the measure of quality of audit evidence. Now, what determines the quality of an audit evidence? To say an evidence is of good quality, two things should come together. One, the relevance of the audit evidence, and second, the reliability of audit evidence. The reliability of audit evidence. So I repeat, the quality of an audit evidence, the quality of an audit evidence is based on the relevance and reliability of the audit evidence. How much relevant and how reliable is the audit evidence? I repeat, how relevant and how much reliable is the audit evidence? Audit evidence. That determines the quality of that evidence. The more relevant, the more reliable the audit evidence is, the more quality is your audit evidence. Do you understand? More quality is the audit evidence. Now, what is relevance of audit evidence? What is reliability is what we have to learn. I repeat, audit evidence must be sufficient and appropriate. Sufficiency is the measure of quantity of audit evidence. Appropriateness is the measure of quality of audit evidence. Sufficiency is affected by 3 factors. One, the materiality. Second, risk of material misstatement. Third, the size and characteristics of population. Appropriateness of the audit evidence is the measure of quality of audit evidence. The quality of an evidence can be determined based on the relevance and the reliability of audit evidence. What do you mean by relevance? The importance of that evidence in the current scenario, that is relevance. That means when you are checking something related to cash book is the most relevant. When you are checking something related to sales, the sales invoice becomes the most relevant evidence. So relevance is the context. What is the most relevant information that you can use? That is called as relevance. Second comes reliability. So relevance and reliability. How much you can trust that evidence? That is called as reliability. How reliable, how trustworthy is that evidence? Okay, now listen carefully. It's very simple. Now, next let us learn reliability of audit evidence. This is generally a 5-mark question that is asked in the exam. Reliability of audit evidence. I repeat, reliability of audit evidence. Reliability of audit evidence. Now, what is this reliability of audit evidence? Now, the reliability of audit evidence is dependent on various factors like the source, nature, etc. Let's see how. Now, if I ask you on the basis of nature of audit evidence, if you compare written evidence with oral evidence, which evidence is more reliable? Obviously, written evidence will be more reliable than what evidence? Oral evidence. Can you see this? Now, this reliability is determined by the source. Okay, if the nature. Determined by the nature. If the nature of audit evidence is such that it is obtained in a written format, when the evidence is written, it is considered to be more reliable than what evidence? Oral evidence. Oral evidence. Next, if you compare external evidence and internal evidence, which is more reliable? Obviously, it is what? External evidence. So external evidence is more reliable than internal evidence. When the information is obtained from outside the entity, generated from outside the entity, the reliability will increase. Do you understand? So here you can see the reliability is determined by the source of the audit evidence. Source. When the source is from outside the organization, the reliability increases. When the source is from within the organization, the reliability will reduce. Why? Because when the information is obtained from within the organization, you feel the organization has control over that information, so they can make manipulations of that information. So that is why when you compare information generated from outside with the information generated from within the organization, we always feel information generated from outside the organization is more reliable, Next, listen carefully. Next, however, as an auditor, you get a lot of evidences from within the organization. Even if we say comparing to the external evidences, internal evidences are lesser reliable, still lot of evidences that the auditor receives will be what evidence? Internally generated evidence. So how to determine the reliability, I repeat, how to determine the reliability of an internal evidence? Can you tell me? How will you determine the reliability of an internal evidence? That is my question. How will you determine the reliability of an internal evidence? How will you determine the reliability of an internal evidence? Tell me. What decides the reliability of an internal evidence? What determines the reliability of an internal evidence? No idea? What determines the reliability of an internal evidence? The internal control. Superb. Good, Dilish. That is the answer. The internal control. Good control system. Visha. Yes, correct. Good internal control system. Pandya, correct. Good control system. So understand, internal control system will determine the reliability of internal evidence. How? If there is a good internal control system, I repeat, if there is a good internal control system, obviously the organization would be running in a good and disciplined manner. In that case, the internally generated evidences will gain more and more reliability. The better the control system, the better is the internal evidence reliability. Understand? So reliability of internal evidence is directly affected by the internal control system, determined by the internal control system. Now, which evidence is better? Evidence obtained directly by the auditor or through the client? Evidence obtained directly by the auditor or through the client. Which evidence is better? Obviously, the evidence obtained directly by the auditor is more reliable than obtained through the client. Evidence obtained directly by the auditor is more reliable than obtained through the client. Whenever an evidence is obtained directly by the auditor, I repeat, whenever an evidence is obtained directly by the auditor, it is more reliable. It is more reliable than obtained through the clients. Next, which evidence is more reliable? Which evidence is more reliable? An evidence which is an original document or evidence which is photocopies on digital documents? The question is very simple. Which evidence is more reliable? Evidence which is obtained in original documents or evidence obtained through photocopies? Answer is very simple. Evidence obtained through original documents is more reliable than obtained through photocopies, digital documents. Do you understand? So these are the 5 points relating to the reliability of audit evidence. One, written evidence is more reliable than oral evidence. External evidence is more reliable than internal evidence. Internal control will determine the reliability of internal evidence. Directly obtained evidence is more reliable than obtained through the client. Original documents are always more reliable than obtained through than photocopies or digital documents. Clear? So if you come into, they are saying, listen to me, listen what they are saying here. See, the reliability of evidence is influenced by its source and by its nature, and is dependent on the individual circumstances under which it is obtained. So they're saying the reliability of evidence is influenced by its source and by its nature, and is dependent on the individual circumstances under which it is obtained, Now, leave all this for the time being. I'll show you where it is there in the textbook regarding reliability and relevance of audit evidence. Yes, so you can see here, relevance and reliability of audit evidence. While audit evidence is primarily obtained from audit procedures performed during the course of audit, it may also include information obtained from other sources like previous audits. What do you mean by relevance? What do you mean by relevance? It says relevance deals with the logical connection, with or bearing upon the purpose of the audit procedures. So what do you mean by relevance? You say something is relevant when it has a logical connection with the audit procedure that you are performing, and where appropriate the assertion under consideration. Assertion we will learn in the coming days. Okay. So relevance of information to be used as audit evidence may be affected by direction of testing. Means what kind of testing that you are doing. Okay. So see, if the purpose of an audit procedure is to test for overstatement in the existence or valuation of accounts payable. What do you mean by accounts payable? Accounts payable is creditors. So if you are performing an audit procedure to test the overstatement, Overstatement in creditors, testing the recorded accounts payable may be a relevant audit procedure. Means you will have to test the creditors account. That is the most relevant audit procedure. Do you understand? So you should understand for each and every situation, the relevant procedure or relevant audit evidence might change. So there is no concrete explanation of what is relevant. It depends on the circumstances and facts of the case. You understand? That is called as relevance. Now comes reliability. Reliability says reliability of information to be used as audit evidence, and therefore the audit evidence itself is influenced by its source, nature and circumstances under which it is obtained. So they have given you 5 points here regarding reliability of audit evidence. See the 5 points. First point says the reliability of audit evidence is increased. When it is increased? When it is obtained from independent sources outside the entity. What is this point? It means external evidence is more reliable than internal evidence. Correct? Next, what is the next point? Reliability of audit evidence that is generated internally is increased when the related controls, including those over its preparation and maintenance imposed by the entity, are effective. This is nothing but internal control will determine the reliability of which evidence? Internal evidence. Then evidence obtained directly by the auditor is more reliable than evidence obtained indirectly or by inference. That means when you obtain evidence directly, it is more reliable than obtained through the clients. Next, evidence in documentary form. I repeat, evidence in documentary form, paper form, electronic form, etc. is more reliable than obtained orally. Next, evidence provided by original documents is more reliable than evidence obtained through photocopies, faces, smileys, documents which has been filmed, digitized, etc. So I repeat, so many things, very important. Reliability of audit evidence, one of the most repeated question in your examination. One of the most repeated question in your examination. You understand? Reliability of audit evidence. What is it? Reliability of audit evidence. It is influenced by the source, then sometimes by the nature, sometimes by the way by which it is, circumstances under which it is obtained. You understand? That is reliability of audit evidence. What is it, my students? Reliability of audit evidence. I hope you are able to understand what we are learning. We understand that audit evidence must be, see from here, this is what we are learning right now. Audit evidence must be dash and dash, sufficient and appropriate. Sufficiency is the measure of quantity of audit evidence. Quantity is affected by 3 factors. Come on. Materiality, risk of material misstatement, then size and characteristics of population. Then we understand appropriateness is the measure of quality of audit evidence. Quality is affected by two things: relevance and reliability of audit evidence. Relevance means the importance of the audit evidence based on the circumstances, based on the procedure that you are performing. Reliability is based on the source, nature, and other methods by which you obtain the evidence. So that's why we have 5 points for understanding reliability. We say that evidence when it is written form is more reliable than oral. External evidence is more reliable than internal. Internal evidence reliability will increase depending upon the good internal control system that the entity maintains. Then evidence obtained directly by the auditor more reliable than obtained through the clients. And finally, an evidence which is obtained as an original document is more reliable than photocopies, digital documents, etc. Are you getting my point? Very, 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 very important to learn. Audit evidence must be dash and dash. Tell me, dash and dash. Sufficient and appropriate. I repeat, it is sufficient and appropriate. I am telling you, a lot of time this question has been asked in the exam. Make sure that you write properly. Okay, fine. Now let's do a small exercise. Okay, I've taught you so many things regarding audit evidence, correct? Taught you so many things regarding audit evidence now. From what is audit evidence? Okay, then evidence must be sufficient, appropriate. I'll give you 5 minutes. Take your notebook and scribble whatever you remember on what we have learned till now. Please take your notebook, scribble down whatever you remember of whatever we have learned till now. Whatever you remember, evidences, the definitions, whatever points. 5 minutes I'll give you. Please do this exercise. Please do it quickly. Please do this exercise. Whatever we have learned till now, please write it in the notebook, scribble it down quickly. Hello. Now, okay, so you would have written, maybe you have not completed, still it is okay. Okay, now, why did I tell you to write it? Why did I tell you to scribble down is because now what you have done is one of the best techniques which has helped me to score marks in theory papers. It means one thing I felt during my studies where I went wrong in the initial stages of my learning was that I used to only study and sometimes recollect in my mind. Okay, so what is happening is I am able to recollect what I study in my mind. But then I understood there is a huge difference between recollecting in mind and writing it down somewhere. Because in the exam, it is not that we are recollecting in our mind, we are writing it down somewhere. So there should be a coordination between the brain and your hands. And it is when we start writing, we tend to realize that we have not recollected so many points. Because when we are just recollecting in our mind, we tend to feel that we remember most of the things. And we are confident and we move forward. But when we write it down in a paper, it gives us visual evidence that few points have been missed, few things have gone unnoticed. I hope you are getting what I am trying to do here. So if you take a paper and keep on writing what you remember, whatever you have missed is what needs to be learned again. So it's like students, what they do is they keep on repeating the whole thing again and again. In that case, what happens is you are repeating things which is already there in your mind and it is already stuck in your mind. So even if you repeat that 100 times, it will stay there. Or you don't repeat even one time, it will still stay there because it is stuck in your mind. There are few points which has not been registered in your mind, which needs to be identified and learned very quickly, and the gap must be filled so that you get the best marks in the exam. I hope that the exercise that we did is understood by you. Why did we do it? It's very, very important. I still remember this was one of the turning points in my studying area, studying time. One of the turning points. Especially sometimes what I used to do is when I have learned theory the previous day, next day morning I used to get up, take a blank paper, white paper, and scribble down whether I remember what I learned the previous day. And almost 70% I will remember. Some 30% what I forget, I tend to write it in a different color ink to get it registered in my mind. Different color ink to get it registered in my mind. You understand? I get it registered in my mind. Then I tend to write it again and see if I get time later in the evening or maybe the next day to see whether I still remember all the points. But this is something which needs to be done, which perfectly needs to be done, which a CA student lacks. You know, they never do it. You write theory for the first time directly in your exam hall. That is the guts that you have. But that is not a good thing. You need to test yourself from home. Find out the mistakes from home. You understand? That is very, very important. Test yourself from home itself. Okay, so please do this exercise every day. Will you do it? Yes or no? Will you do this exercise from today every day? Is my question. Will you do it? Yes or no? Okay, will you do it? Yes or no? Come on. Will you do it? Yes, sir. Thank you for the response. Now, please understand, please do it. Please do it. It's for your good. It's going to help you. You see the difference in your marks. You see the difference in your marks. You would be very happy to see the difference that you have in your marks. Take it from me. Listen, take it from me. You'll see the difference. I'm telling you, I am able to give you good techniques only because I did not cross the line in my first attempt. I did not cross the line in my first attempt. Okay, I even failed in theory paper in my first attempt. Do you understand? Law paper actually. I failed in that paper. So I have gone through examinations where I have failed. I have gone through examinations that I have got average mark. I have gone through examinations where I have scored the excellent mark. 70 plus in theory, CA final, CA intermediate also. Do you understand? So I have gone through all these. So I clearly know when did I get this, what did I do then. So it becomes easier for me to give you such advices because I know what different did I do to score the marks. Okay, so this was a turning point. Methods to obtain audit evidence. Next is methods. Now we know what is audit evidence. We know evidence must be sufficient and appropriate. We know what is sufficiency, what is appropriateness, what are the factors affecting this. Now next comes the next discussion of teaching you how to collect audit evidence. What will the auditor do to collect audit evidence? Now the first method that he may use to collect audit evidence is called as inspection. It is called as what? Inspection. So auditor can obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence by performing inspection. By performing inspection. Now the question is, what is he inspecting? Okay, the question is, what is he inspecting? He is inspecting the books of accounts. He is inspecting records. He is inspecting documents. So a lot of things that can be what inspected. But one thing that you have to take care, listen to me carefully, is inspection is not confined to only books of accounts, records, documents. It also contains, I repeat, it also contains physical examination. I repeat, it also contains physical examination of an asset. Please understand, this is what you forget. So inspection is not confined to just books of accounts, records, documents, etc. It also includes a physical examination of an asset. So you even inspect assets and you inspect records, documents, books of accounts. Are you getting my point? So inspection is of both books of accounts, records, documents as well as physical examination of asset. Now second one. After inspection comes inquiry. Inquiry. Now, what do you mean by inquiry? What happens in an inquiry? What does the auditor do in an inquiry? What is the auditor doing in an inquiry? You tell me. Auditor is dash information. Fill in the blanks. Auditor is dash information. Inquiry is dash information from knowledgeable persons. Inquiry means dash information from knowledgeable persons. Come on. dash information from knowledgeable persons. What does an auditor do in an inquiry? He will dash the information from knowledgeable persons. He will, come on, what is the word? He will seeking information. Superb. What is the word? Seeking information. Seeking. Perfect. Seeking information. That is the word. Seeking information. Very, very important word. Seeking information of knowledgeable persons from within or outside the entity. Very, very important word is seeking. You understand? Please study the word seeking. Go to the important words in your notebook and please write seeking. Seeking. Do you understand? So seeking information. Please do, see, instead of seeking, don't write asking, getting. So somebody said ask. That's what I'm saying. We'll have normal words like asking, getting in our minds. But Institute wants this word from you. What is it called as? Seeking information. You understand? That is why I'm saying whenever you find a peculiar word, a good professional word, write it separately and keep. Today after breakfast 2 times, say seeking, seeking. Seeking, seeking. I told you from yesterday, I've told you, please write down the important words that you find out separately and keep. So that you are able to see what, imagine, no, you write those words separately somewhere. Imagine in the notebook behind your right, you have written applicable financial reporting framework, materiality, material, misstatement, misstatement, reasonable assurance, seeking. Imagine you have written like this in your notebook. And imagine reading these words before going to the exam hall or in the morning of the exam. You've read these words. What happens? The words which are there in your brain already, but which would have been gone down due to new things that you have learned. When you read that page with all these important words, your brain refreshes to these words. Then what happens in the exam hall? You will be able to use these words in your answer. Are you getting my point? Otherwise, what will happen is you will not be using the technical language in the exam. So that is why I am telling you, my students, write the important words somewhere in your notebook and keep, so that it can be read sometimes whenever possible to refresh your memory with these words. Because these are the words that is required in your answer. Write it separately and keep. Do you understand? Fine. So seeking information of knowledgeable persons from within or outside the entity. And they say inquiries can range from formal written inquiries to informal oral inquiries. So they're clearly saying inquiries can range from formal written inquiries to informal oral inquiries. So it is not confined to only formal written inquiries. It can go to informal oral inquiries also. And the next most important point in inquiry is inquiry does not end by seeking the information alone. I repeat, inquiry does not end just by seeking the information alone. Inquiry includes both seeking plus evaluation of responses. Evaluating responses. Very, very, very important point. That means the point says inquiry is not confined only to getting the information, that is seeking the information. Inquiry also includes evaluating the responses, evaluating the responses from the whatever you have got from the process of inquiry. So evaluating responses to inquiries is considered to be an integral part of the inquiry process. I repeat, it is considered to be an integral part of the inquiry process. So please understand, this is very, very important. Evaluating responses. Fine. Evaluating responses. Next. So inspection, inquiry. Next comes confirmation. Confirmation. Confirmation we'll learn little later. Okay, confirmation. It is something called as external confirmation. It is actually what? External confirmation. Discussed in SA 505. Confirmation. It is external confirmation. Confirmation. Okay. Next. Observation. Observation. Now, what do you mean by observation? Listen to me carefully. Very important point of observation. What do you mean by observation? As you would know, you tell me, physical verification of inventory. Conducting physical verification of inventory is the responsibility of management or the auditor. Please tell me, conduction of physical verification of inventory is the responsibility of management or the auditor. Conducting physical verification of inventory is the responsibility of management or the auditor. Whose responsibility it is? It is a responsibility of the management. Correct? It is a responsibility of the management. The management needs to do physical verification. Now somebody says auditor. Auditor. Now please understand, my students, the first thing that you have to understand is the auditor is not responsible for conduction of physical verification of assets. It is not the auditor who requires to conduct physical verification of asset or inventory, whatever it is. It is the management who is responsible for conducting physical verification of assets, inventories. So, sir, what is the auditor going to do? Auditor needs to act as an observer. He needs to look. He needs to be looking at the process being performed. He needs to be looking at the process being performed by management. By management. He needs to be looking at the process being performed by management. That is nothing but what? Observation. That is the method of observation. In observation, auditor is required to observe, look at the process being performed by management. We need to be physically attending the verification process. We should be physically attending the verification process. Superb. We should be physically attending the verification process. Do you understand? We need to be present on the day on which physical verification is conducted by the management. Physical verification is conducted by the management. But please understand, it is not our responsibility to conduct physical verification of inventory or asset. It is the responsibility of the management. And it is through the process of observation that the auditor obtains visual evidence with respect to the inventory's physical verification. One more example I can give you regarding the physical observation is that observation is that during the course of audit, to understand the internal control system of an organization. I repeat, to understand the internal control system of an organization, the auditor may use this method called as what? Observation, to observe how the internal control is being, how the internal control is being managed, how the internal control is being taken care by the entity. So to understand the effectiveness of the control system, to understand what the internal control system is all about, the auditor may observe the internal control system of the organization. So that is why one of the methods to obtain audit evidence, which is a visual evidence that you obtain here, is observation. Is what? Observation. So inspection, inquiry, confirmation, observation. Now comes the fifth one. It is called as recalculation. It is called as what? recalculation. Now, what do you mean by recalculation? Listen to me carefully. Recalculation is nothing but something which has already been calculated is again being calculated. So who has already calculated it and kept? The management. So what is the auditor doing? Calculating it again. That is recalculation. Calculating it again. That is recalculation. Why is auditor calculating it again? The reason by which auditor is calculating it again is to check the mathematical accuracy or arithmetical accuracy. So the objective of the auditor while doing recalculation of something which has already been calculated is to check the mathematical accuracy of that particular of the transactions. Do you understand? Mathematical accuracy. Now, so recalculation is only focusing on what? Mathematical accuracy. It just wants to know whether the calculation is done properly. So mathematical accuracy. Next method of collecting audit evidence is reperformance. What do you mean by reperformance? Reperformance is nothing but you are performing something which has already been performed by the management as part of their internal control process. I repeat, reperformance means where you are performing again something which has already been performed by the management. What is the example? Example is BRS, Bank Reconciliation Statement. How does BRS becomes the example? Because the entity would have already prepared a BRS for their purpose. But sometimes what will auditor do? He will prepare his own BRS, not even going through what BRS is being prepared by the management. So he will not even focus on the BRS that the management has prepared. He will prepare his own BRS. Now this BRS that he performs again, that he prepares again, the BRS that auditor performs again is basically a reperformance. He is independently performing something which the management has already performed. So wherever the auditor is independently performing something which the management has already performed, that is called as reperformance. Sir, what is the difference between recalculation and reperformance? Simple. In recalculation, you are just focusing on the arithmetical accuracy. But reperformance has a bigger objective. You are reperforming the whole activity to see whether something has been missed out, whether any transaction has been wrongly recorded. Do you understand? So to find out that reperformance is done. But in recalculation, you are not focusing on whether something has been missed out or not. There the focus is only on the calculation part. Now imagine I take a BRS and take a calculator and just calculate the BRS that they have given me. I am doing recalculation. At the same time, when I am completely preparing BRS on my own, it is reperformance. I hope you are getting the difference. Do you understand? Something that I'm doing just to check the mathematical accuracy, it is recalculation. Something that I'm again doing to check whether anything is missed out, everything is taken care, nothing has been wrongly recorded. In that case, it is reperformance. And last and the seventh method is nothing but analytical procedures. I repeat, analytical procedures. Where is analytical procedures discussed? It is discussed in SA 520, chapter number 8 for new syllabus. Analytical procedures. Do you understand? So these are the 7 methods to obtain audit evidence. Tell me, what are the 7 methods, my students? One is inspection. Second is inquiry. Third, confirmation. fourth observation, fifth recalculation, sixth reperformance, seventh analytical procedures. Come on everybody, repeat what are the seven methods. Come on. First method is inspection, second is inquiry, third is confirmation, fourth observation, fifth recalculation, sixth reperformance, seventh analytical procedures. Come on, what are the methods to obtain audit evidence? First one, inspection. Second, inquiry. Third, confirmation. Fourth, observation. Fifth, recalculation. Sixth, reperformance. Seventh, analytical procedures. These are the seven methods to obtain audit evidence. In inspection, please focus on physical examination of asset. In inquiry, please focus on evaluating responses is also included, not just seeking plus evaluating. Confirmation we are learning in essay 505. Observation, what is it? We are looking at a process being performed by management. Observation, we are looking at a process being performed by management. That is, best example is physical verification of asset, where we are not doing the physical verification, but we act as an observer to the process being performed by management. Recalculation is checking the arithmetical accuracy. Reperformance is something like you are independently performing which you have already performed. Analytical procedures we'll discuss in essay 520, where some analytical skills are used by the auditor. These are the seven methods to obtain audit evidence. Seven methods to obtain audit evidence. Now these seven methods are used in the audit procedures that the auditor performs. Audit procedures that the auditor performs. Audit procedures. Audit procedures that the auditor performs during the course of his audit. What are the audit procedures that the auditor performs? What are the audit procedures, my students, that the auditor performs? Now please write this down in your notebook. First one is called as RAP. Is nothing but risk assessment. Risk assessment procedure. Then you have FAP. It is nothing but further audit procedure. This FAP will be divided into two. First one is TOC. Test of control. Then SP. Substantive procedure. This SP has two procedures within it. One is TOD. Test of details of transaction. And comes SAP. Substantive analytical procedure. Substantive analytical procedure. Now this is your complete syllabus. This is the audit procedures that the auditor performs for evidences. In these procedures, he will use these seven methods to collect the evidence. What are the procedures? It starts from RAP, that is risk assessment procedure. Then goes to FAP, that is the further audit procedure. That means whatever further audit procedure auditor wants to perform, it is performed after the performance of RAP, that is risk assessment procedure. So once the risk assessment procedure is done, then you go to the further audit procedures. In further audit procedure, you are doing two procedures. One is TOC, that is test of controls. Then SP, that is substantive procedure. In substantive procedure, you're doing two procedures. One is test of details of transaction, TOD. Then SAP, that is substantive analytical procedures. I repeat, substantive analytical procedures. You understand? So this is audit procedures in a very simple way to understand. It starts from RAP, then you do your further procedures. In the further procedures, you are performing TOC and SP. In SP, you are doing both test of details as well as analytical procedures. Do you understand? And in these procedures is where you are applying those 7 methods. What? Inspection, inquiry, confirmation, observation, recalculation, reperformance, analytical procedures. So these 7 methods to collect audit evidence are used in this particular, what do you say, procedures that the auditor performs. These procedures. Do you understand? So you have to understand how it is applied. The 7 methods are used in these procedures. That means in risk assessment procedure, to collect audit evidence, you will need one of these, some of these 7 methods. In further audit procedures, when you're doing test of controls, these are the 7 methods that you can use. When you're doing substantive procedure, that is test of details, these are the 7 methods that you can use. These are the 7 methods available which will help you to collect audit evidence. And you are collecting audit evidence while performing audit procedures. So audit procedures are risk assessment, further audit procedures and all these things. Are you able to understand? So please make sure that you are learning this properly. This particular thing is very important from the examination perspective. What we have written here regarding the audit procedures. It is there in your chapter number 3 also. That is why I am discussing. You understand? So it is there here. They have clearly given you the audit procedures. I'll show you. Audit procedures. See, risk assessment procedure and other procedures. That is further audit procedures. Other procedures is test of control, substantive procedures. Test of controls is test of details, analytical procedures. And test of details again they have divided into vouching and verification. That is test of transactions and test of balances. You understand? So this is one of the most important diagram because this makes you understand this is what the auditor is going to do. He's going to do risk assessment, other procedures, all those things. You understand? This has to be read properly from the examination perspective. Fine? Examination perspective. These test of controls, nature of test of controls and all we'll see later. Here is where your methods is there. See, inspection, then observation, external confirmation, then you have recalculation, reperformance, analytical procedures, inquiry. An inquiry, I told you, this sentence is very important. Evaluating responses to inquiries is an integral part of the inquiry process. Evaluating responses to inquiry is an integral part of the inquiry process. This is very important sentence. You understand? This is what this come for examination a number of times. Examination number of times. Please be a little careful. This sentence. Evaluating responses to inquiries is an integral part of the inquiry process. So 7 ways by which you can collect your audit evidence. You understand? Collect your audit evidence and procedures. These are procedures which you have to learn. Okay, from the examination perspective, very important. Okay, now audit evidence. Audit evidence. What we have learned till now is almost perfect regarding what is audit evidence, what is included in audit evidence, then what is sufficiency of audit evidence, what is appropriateness of audit evidence, then what are the factors affecting the sufficiency, what are the factors affecting the appropriateness of audit evidence. Correct. Then we learned about reliability of audit evidence, relevance of audit evidence. We learned various methods to obtain audit evidence, almost 7 methods. Clear? Every method was important. Then we had a general idea now about the audit procedures, the total audit procedures that the auditor will perform. Okay, so these are the idea that we have. Okay, now Now listen. Now as far as the discussion is concerned, one thing that we have not discussed is SA 505, called as what? External confirmation. Called as what? External confirmation. Very important from the examination perspective, external confirmation. Now, what do you mean by external confirmation? It is one of the ways by which you obtain audit evidence. And as the name suggests, you can see it is a confirmation obtained from external sources. It is an external confirmation. Confirmation obtained from external sources. Okay, so let's try to understand what the situation is all about. Okay, what the discussion is all about regarding external confirmation. Now, in a financial statement, now imagine there is a financial statement, there is a company. Listen to me, yeah? There's a company called as NDA Limited. NDA Limited. Okay. Now NDA Limited is a company. Now in that company's financial statement, I'm going through, imagine, what do you say, the list of debtors. I'm going through the list of debtors. NDA Limited is a company. I'm appointed as the auditor of NDA Limited. Now I am going through the debtors, list of debtors of NDA Limited. Now in the list of debtors, I find a name called as Mr. Modi. Okay, for rupees 25 lakhs. So 25 lakhs is receivable from Mr. Modi. NDA Limited is a company. NDA Limited is a company. Imagine, which deals with Ayurvedic products. Ayurvedic products. NDA Limited is a company which deals with Ayurvedic products. And you find that there is a debtor called as Mr. Modi who has to pay the company rupees 25 lakhs. 25 lakhs. Now I am the auditor of NDA Limited. Now for this particular debtor balance, I need audit evidence to make sure that it is true and fair. So obviously I will be doing inspection, inquiry, all those things I can do. What will the company provide me with? One, they may provide me with the copy of sales invoice to Mr. Modi of those products, and it is a credit bill. It's a credit bill. And imagine the bill is for 25 lakhs. So we are very clear that the bill is for 25 lakhs. They have given us the bill also. We have gone through the inventory. We have seen the inventory has been transferred to Mr. Modi. But still, as an auditor, imagine I am not satisfied with the evidences that I have received. I feel it is not sufficient and appropriate. Somewhere I feel I need to contact this person, who Mr. Modi. I need to contact this person and get the information directly from him so that I'll be satisfied regarding this transaction. Now auditor feels he wants to contact this person. I repeat, contact this person and obtain the evidence directly from him instead of obtaining it from the company. So the auditor, now listen carefully, so the auditor wants to confirm some information directly with Mr. Modi. That means auditor will send some request to Mr. Modi, and he would want Mr. Modi to directly communicate with the auditor. He would want Mr. Modi to directly communicate with the auditor. So some information will be requested by the auditor to Mr. Modi, and the auditor wants Mr. Modi to directly respond to the auditor. I repeat, the auditor does not want Mr. Modi to reply to NDA Limited and NDA Limited giving me that information. No. I want Mr. Modi to directly give me the information. I want him to give me a direct response. And that too, I want it in writing. Direct written response. I need Mr. Modi to give me a direct written response. Direct written response. You understand? It could be in paper form, electronic form, any other medium. No issues. It should be a direct written response obtained by the auditor from the third party or the confirming party. This direct written response is called as external confirmation. This direct written response will be called as external confirmation. So please understand, what is external confirmation? It is the direct written response that is obtained by the auditor from the third party. Please understand. Is external confirmation a reliable audit evidence? Tell me. Is external confirmation a reliable audit evidence? Is external confirmation a reliable audit evidence? What do you think? Is external confirmation a reliable audit evidence? What do you think, according to you? Is it a reliable audit evidence? Let me tell you, it is a very much reliable audit evidence. Why? You look at how the evidence is. One, it is a directly obtained evidence. Second, it is a written evidence. Third, it is a external evidence. So you can see, if you can look into the evidence as such, it is a directly obtained evidence, it is a written evidence, it is a externally obtained evidence. So automatically the reliability of this evidence is very high. It's a highly reliable audit evidence. And I hope you understand, the external confirmation is the response that I receive. Are you getting my point? The response is called as external confirmation. What Mr. Modi responds to me, that response will be called as external confirmation. Called as what? External confirmation. So it is a direct written response that the auditor obtains. You understand? Direct written response that the auditor obtains from the third party called as the confirming party. So where do you think these external confirmations will be used by the auditors? It will be used in case of debtors, then creditors, then loans, inventory held by third party, accounts, then bills payable, bills receivable. So everywhere, any situation which consists third parties, which contains third parties, there you will have external confirmation as one of the procedures to obtain audit evidence. You understand? So debtors, creditors, loans, third parties, all those things, bills receivable, bills payable, all these situations you will find that auditor may use the method of what? External confirmation. Auditor may use the method of external confirmation. Do you understand? Fine. So this is the basic definition of what is external confirmation. Okay. Now the other points relating to external confirmation and the points of discussion of external confirmation, we will do it in the next class, because I have a little small assignment today. So I'm leaving you a little early. So let me tell all the students, now this free YouTube lecture or revision lecture will end today. For the next week, we'll have classes in the Lexia's platform only. So any student who wants to enroll for the class, please enroll for the class and get in touch. Regarding the fees and everything, I will be updating in the Telegram group, also in my WhatsApp status. I have discussed with the Lexia team, so you'll get the new update most probably today. Okay, so if you are wanting to continue with the classes, please make sure that you get registered. And anybody has issues with payment of fees, I know the situation is corona and a lot of financial crisis that students are facing. So please let me know. I can arrange for payment in installments because we have classes for it's almost for 2 months. So I can arrange for slow payment of the money also, of the fees also. Okay. So please let me know if there is anything like that. I want to serve the students, help the students clear the examination. That is why I've kept this morning batch in the morning batch. As far as the book is concerned, I am actually teaching from the institute material because I'm telling you, because if you see right now, couriering the book or all those things will not be practically possible. So if there is any short notes kind of a thing, I'll mail it to you and you can use it. The revision material at the end, I will mail it to you, which you can use it. Rest we will learning directly from the textbook only. Do you understand? That is why I'm teaching you from the institute material. It is the best material. You don't require any other book. Just focus on institute material and RTPs and MTPs. That's it. Nothing more than that. You understand? So book, you just forget learning from any other book. It is just the material that we have to use. Okay. So revision material I'll give you at the end. Revision material to completely revise on the previous day, that I will send it to you. Don't worry. I'll give you a revision material. Okay. So make sure that you are using this opportunity the best for your good. And so next week we'll meet Tuesday morning 6:30, and as I promised, Sunday we'll have the examination for the topics taken yesterday and today. Okay, Sunday we have the examination test paper for the topics taken yesterday and today. Okay, so we have some good topics, and because the topics are there, we'll have a cumulative for this week only. For Sunday, let's have a cumulative exams of the topics taken on last week as well as this week, and let's make a good question paper. Do you understand? So there's not much to learn, so let's have the topics from last week as well as from the current week also. Please study well and write the test papers. It is very, very important to write the test papers to make sure that you're ready for the examination. Thank you so much. See you next week. Bye.